Have you ever been walking through a crowded train station, minding your own business, when somebody suddenly shoulder checks you so hard that you almost hit the floor? No apology, no eye contact, they just keep walking like nothing happened, leaving you either in stunned silence or getting very angry. Now imagine that happening over and over again, but not by accident. Not because the station is crowded, but because someone intentionally picked you out. And imagine discovering that in Japan, this phenomenon has become common enough to earn its own name, Butsukari Otoko, or literally the bumping man. And yes, before anyone in the comments says, come on, this happens everywhere, random aggression absolutely exists in every country. But what makes this story strange is how very specific, visible, and oddly documented this has become in Japan. For years, primarily women in Japan have described a very particular kind of experience. A man, usually though not always middle-aged, often dressed like an ordinary salaryman or businessman, spots a woman walking alone in a train station, shopping area, or sidewalk. He changes course and he locks onto the target, and then suddenly slams into her shoulder or body at full force. And then he disappears back into the crowd. And somehow this has become common enough that millions of people in Japan know exactly what you mean when you say the words Butsukari Otoko. Now, this is not any kind of organized movement or internet trend, although that would somehow make more sense. Instead, these actions sit in a weird gray zone between public nuisance, harassment, displaced rage, misogyny, urban stress, and what kind of feels like people quietly losing their minds in crowded cities. And to understand why this has become such a conversation in Japan, we need to go back a bit. Because while people have probably been doing this for decades, the phrase Butsukari Otoko exploded into public consciousness around 2018. And oddly enough, one of the biggest reasons for this were train station incidents. I've made lots of videos about trains in Japan, and as most of you probably know, Japan's train stations are incredible. Efficient, clean, organized, but they're also part of the daily experience of millions and millions of people in this country. Millions of exhausted people with long commutes, crammed into tiny spaces. Unfortunately, this can be a pressure cooker for stress. And in Japan, that usually means silent stress. And in places like Shinjuku Station, one of the busiest stations on Earth, weird social behavior gets amplified. In 2018, footage filmed inside the Shinjuku station went viral online. The video appeared to show a man deliberately crashing into women as he walked through crowds. Not everyone, just specifically women. And this was the moment many women in Japan collectively went, oh wait, this happened to others too?
Oh my god.
Because once people started talking about it publicly, stories flooded social media. Many women described almost identical experiences of a man suddenly changing directions to hit them, being shoved hard enough to stumble, sometimes getting bruised, sometimes falling, sometimes carrying bags or even children when it happened. And one disturbing detail came up repeatedly. Many victims felt these men specifically targeted women who looked less likely to confront them. So young women, women alone, smaller women, sometimes elderly women, which immediately changes the vibe from annoying commuter behavior to misogynist cowards picking easy targets. And yes, Japan already has a history of men harassing women on trains, or chikan, meaning gropers, which has led to many cities having women-only train cars at busy times of the day. But this Butsukari Otoko felt different, as it wasn't necessarily sexual in an obvious way. It was aggression. and Japan is a society where public harmony, or wa, social harmony, is deeply valued. So, behavior like this that breaks that invisible social contract tends to stand out, which raises the obvious question, why would somebody do this? Well, nobody agrees entirely, but there are several theories. The first is simple: displaced anger. Japanese media and psychologists have pointed out that many commuters experience enormous stress. Long work hours, crowded trains, rigid workplace expectations, social isolation. Again, not uniquely Japanese. Big city stress exists everywhere. But some experts suggested that for certain deeply frustrated people, crowded train stations become places where they can release aggression with almost no consequences. Maybe they think that if somebody shoves you in a packed station, what are the odds you can even prove it happened intentionally? The perpetrator can just disappear into a crowd of thousands with no witnesses. No confrontation, no accountability, and for someone who feels powerless elsewhere in life, that tiny moment of dominance may feel rewarding. Another explanation people discuss in Japan is misogyny. Because many reported cases involve men targeting women specifically. They are not random collisions, but targeted aggression. Some women interviewed by Japanese media said it felt almost performative, like these men wanted to intimidate or punish women without technically committing a major crime. Now, before this turns into a comment section war, there is an important caveat here. Despite the name Butsukari Otoko, which I said means bumping man, this behavior is not exclusively men bumping into women. There are absolutely cases of women doing this too, and recently, there have even been viral videos circulating in Japan showing women aggressively bumping into or shoving strangers in crowded areas. One video from the famous Shibuya Scramble crossing appeared to show a woman forcefully colliding with a young child, while another in Shinjuku showed a woman absolutely losing it in a crowd. So this broader phenomenon of intentional public collisions is not uniquely male. That said, the reason Butsukari Otoko specifically became such a recognized term in Japan because most of the highly publicized and reported cases involve men seemingly targeting women, particularly in train stations and commuter spaces. In other words, the wider behavior may be universal, the pattern that sparked national attention had a very specific shape. Because defenders of this will always say, well, maybe it was too crowded, or maybe it was accidental, or maybe the person was distracted. Sure, sometimes that could absolutely happen. Crowded stations are chaotic and people bump into each other constantly. But when somebody crosses an open space just to shoulder check one person and then continues walking like nothing happened, people notice. And Japanese social media noticed a lot. There were many posts warning women about certain stations, videos of suspicious behavior, women describing strategies to avoid being targeted, and people took this all very seriously. Some women said they wore backpacks to absorb impact. Some changed their regular routes. Others mentally prepared themselves during rush hour. Imagine having a daily commute where part of your strategy is, okay, hopefully no stranger body checks me today. Even with all this, I hope you are not watching this and thinking, wow, Japan sounds terrifying. Because it's not, really. Statistically, Japan remains one of the safer countries in the world, and most visitors to Japan will almost never experience anything remotely like this. Most Japanese men are obviously not doing this, and most Japanese people are equally disgusted by the phenomenon. The reason Butsukari Otoko became such a major discussion in Japan is precisely because people viewed it as abnormal. This is not normal Japan. This is more like what happens when anonymous city life collides with social pressure and unresolved frustration. So, if you visit Japan, should you worry about Butsukari Otoko? Honestly, probably not. But if somebody suddenly slams into you in a station for absolutely no reason, congratulations! You may have just encountered one of Japan's weirdest and most unsettling social phenomena. And hopefully, one that becomes rarer with time. If you enjoyed this video and want more strange, uncomfortable, and surprisingly revealing stories about life in Japan, please like it and subscribe to the channel, and share it with others that you think might be interested in more tidbits from Japan. Because sometimes the weirdest parts of a country are the ones people don't put in the travel brochures.